So in this segment, we're going to be discussing Kemi Badenoch, and well, it's really just Robert Jenrick being cooked here, and this is phenomenal. This is some of the best, some of the funniest analysis I've seen.
Yeah, I think Suella endorsing Robert Jenrick, it's a bit like Voldemort endorsing Sauron, who's running against Thanos.
That's the nerdiest. This is the nerdiest analogy I've heard. Right, Voldemort, obviously from Harry Potter, endorsing Sauron, who's from Lord of the Rings, who's running against Thanos. It's great.
These are two people running to be, arguably pitching themselves as the next prime minister. One of them lives in a complete fantasy land. Kemi Badenoch spent a week or so last year running around claiming that children were identifying as cats in school.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. That's a good one. She also spent time again attacking maternity pay and things like that, talking about how people had more kids when there wasn't maternity pay, without realizing the cost of living was much lower, and you could live off one family's income. And also the fact that women didn't get a lot of say back then as well, which is another thing.
Children identifying as cats, again, came from the far right in the United States, and again was without evidence. Robert Jenrick, on the other hand, is claiming we should leave the European Convention on Human Rights in order to promote freedom. He wants to promote everyone's freedom by taking away their fundamental rights. So
which is a Dominic Raab thing, isn't it? He said he don't believe in certain freedoms, which, again, Jenrick doesn't really understand the protections that the ECHR gives us, or he's just pretending to be ignorant of them. But, he keeps talking about this British Bill of Rights, I think, that he wants to push with no detail. You had David Davies recently talking about how the one thing the Tories have always struggled to get off the ground is their British Bill of Rights, because fundamentally a lot of them don't really believe in rights.
Well, he would say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to have a British Bill of Rights rather than...
Bam.
And there's similar rights in the ECHR can easily be made into a British Act.
Well, you can have both, though. If one doesn't infringe on the other, surely you could have both.
No, they can't, because the Parliament can make any law and remove any rights that it wants. So when he's saying, "Oh, we'll have a British Bill of Rights," what he's saying is, "Hello, little citizens. I will grant, as Prime Minister, I will use my parliamentary majority to grant you the rights that I may then take away as soon as I want them."
That's up to voters to decide whether they want to vote.
But I mean, it's also an incredible.
It's also, you're scamming the voters because you're taking away their protections. Because one of the things the electorate don't really understand, they'll see this foreign court that's thrown down rulings about Rwanda, but in reality, this is the court that exists to actually protect citizens' rights.
Assault on freedom, and it's an assault on what was achieved by the Conservative Party after Nuremberg, and by Winston Churchill, by the great Conservative lawyers that existed before that. So you've got two candidates who are so far to the right of the political spectrum that their entire debate has sort of been in the fantasy land of American far-right conspiracy theory.
Which is again, it's true. Kemi Badenoch talking about kids identifying as cats. That's a lie Joe Rogan pushed, and then he fell back to imagine if they were. Jenrick, that guy is nuts as well. Talking about how apparently being in the Home Office is a thing that radicalised him. They're both the worst candidate really that the Tories could have picked. James Cleverly is the guy who really fumbled this. He's the one that's going to cost the Tory party, because I think he could have beaten Badenoch potentially. Actually, I don't think he would have won in the membership runoff. I think it was always going to be one of Jenrick or Badenoch winning, just because the Tory base is full of lunatics.
Case of Robert Jenrick, I think Jenrick really was truly radicalised by being at the Home Office, and that the account he gives of having been a very conventional politician who went into this department and basically found everything didn't work sounds convincing. I
don't think that sounds convincing. I think he's a guy who saw which way the wind was blowing and became more right-wing because of it. Just like Liz Truss, he was a Remainer who voted to be in the EU, and he changed his views because he could see the party was changing, especially under Boris Johnson when he culled a load of politicians. He could see which way kind of not the voters were going, not the British voters, but the Tory voters. He can see what direction they're going in, and he sees Farage as a threat, so he's trying to head that off by saying, look, we can do what Reform are promising and actually win. That's why I think he's gone down this route.
We've known him on and off for a long time, and he was being noisy about the ECHR long before he resigned. So I think there is a sort of real element of conviction here. Though with politicians, when conviction and convenience meet, you can never know which is the driving force.
I mean, it's convenience, because a lot of politicians, they don't have strong morals. You know, they will change their views based on what they think will get them success. You know, again, is
I fail to see the logic here. Senate. The price to pay for power?
it's a question I asked, you know, the audience a long time ago, and the answer is yes. Sanity is the price to pay for power, and Robert Jenrick paid that price.
A long time. What's he like?
Robert Jenrick paid that price for, you know, his sanity over and over again in order to stay as a minister, stay within Boris Johnson's kind of government. That's it.
He's very proficient, very articulate, intelligent.
Jenrick, intelligent,
able, quick, and I think maybe rather surprised to find himself on the journey that he's gone on. I should add, I can't think, I mean, maybe you'll be able to correct me, I think it's quite hard for politicians to reinvent themselves. You know, they're not David Bowie, who can be, you know, the Thin White Duke one moment and something else the next, and every.
Yeah, because you know the difference in musicians can always change styles, because no one's like, oh, your music was your driving principle. You know, if they started talking about different things, then that would be a different conversation. But you know, musicians, sometimes they have personas and things like that. But like with politicians, you expect them to have some sort of moral compass, you know, fundamental beliefs that they think are worth pushing on to the general public. Generally, they're wrong, but point being is that that's meant to be how politicians are.
Everybody loves it. It's quite hard for a politician to change because the voters and anyone looking on tend to say, well, hey, you know, if you believe that now, why didn't you believe it last week? I think this is the problem Michael Portillo ran into in 2001. I can't think of a politician in modern times.
Like, if you think to yourself, right, you know, a lot of these politicians, they're in their late 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, right? How much does your worldview change in those years? Unless, you know, big fundamental changes happen in your life. Not much. You know, I think a lot of your growth happens in your kind of 20s and early 30s. So, you know, if you're a person who's fundamentally changed on your views on the EU, for example, like, what's caused that? And, you know, his argument, Jenrick's argument of, well, I didn't think we would get the Brexit benefits, that's why I want to stay in the EU. And now I realise we can still get those Brexit benefits. It's like, that just it's just not a strong argument to me.
Who's shifted their worldview fundamentally and has made it work for them.
And just finally, what, in terms of the Conservative Party and its psychology, what condition do you think it's in at the moment? Well, in terms of its health, I mean, the Conservative Party conference, slightly odd event. What do you think it's thinking about its future at the moment?
It ought to be more depressed than it is. 121 members of Parliament, worst result ever, politics fracturing, reform on one side, the Lib Dems eating away at its vote in the home counties.
Which is true. They're being eaten kind of a centre. They're One Nation Tories. The centre kind of right of the vote, I think, got swallowed up by the Lib Dems. And their far right is being taken over by Reform. So I think that this is true.
But it is surprisingly chipper. And I think the reason for that, first, it's winning a lot of local government by-elections. And they tend to get your tail up when you're in opposition. But I think there's a sense in which the fracturing can also potentially be helpful to them as well as harmful, because they're looking at a government with this enormous majority, but that only won 34% and was grossly overstated by the polls. I think there's sort of something in the Conservatives somewhere that is hoping that people wanted to give them a kicking, have done it, and will look at them again because they've not fundamentally got a lot of confidence with the government.
I think one of the things that the Tories kind of forget, if this is their view, is that, you know, as long as things are going relatively okay, they will continue to vote for the people who made things relatively okay. That's one of the reasons why I think they won in 2015, won in 2017, won in 2019, because I think the average person felt okay enough to keep voting for them. It's only when mortgage rates really went through the roof and energy bills and things like that, you know, when really the vast majority of people were impacted, that's when people turned, I think, on the Conservative Party, and their poll numbers dipped really badly. So I don't think the Conservatives should be as optimistic as they are, because David Cameron, despite being a really unpopular government during the very early 2010s, still somehow won a majority in 2015, which baffles me to this day. So I don't think they should be as confident as they are if they think they're going to win based on Starmer's unpopularity.
I think they've got rather more work to do than that, and that they're not just going to bounce back into government almost as of right.
Who do you think is going to win, finally? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, I'm told, and everyone repeats what everyone else says, that Kerry Badenoch will win the leadership contest, but we don't really know.
I think it could be Jenrick, but I'm probably wrong. I'm pretty bad at predictions. But yeah, I did want to discuss more stuff on Badenoch, but I'll keep that for a separate clip. Anyways, on kind of the, this here though, Voldemort endorsing Sauron running against Thanos. This is one of the funniest things I think I'm going to read all year round. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.